In a recent video, Jehovah's Witnesses warned their members about the constant flood of information in today's world, a message that sounds entirely reasonable. The video cautions viewers against misinformation, conspiracy theories, and half-truths, urging them to test out words as the tongue tastes food. The message leans heavily on Bible verses, framing the organization as a voice of reason in a world of deception. However, there is an unsettling irony. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, the organization behind Jehovah's Witnesses, has for over a century been one of the most prolific producers of misinformation in the religious world. Its history is a parade of failed prophecies, rewritten doctrines, doctored narratives, and weaponized half-truths, all presented as spiritual food from Jehovah. And to hear them now lecture the world about misinformation is a masterclass in projection, a wolf cautioning the sheep to beware of other wolves. Misinformation, the video warns, isn't just inaccurate, it can be dangerous. True, and few organizations illustrate that danger better than Jehovah's Witnesses themselves.
In today's world, there's a constant flood of information coming at you from just about everywhere. It's good to stay informed. The problem is that not everything you hear or see is true. Some of it is misinformation. Opinions, half-truths, conspiracy theories, and even outright lies dressed up as facts. Misinformation isn't just inaccurate, it can also be dangerous. It can cause people to make bad decisions or to ignore important safety warnings. So how can you protect yourself from misinformation? At Job 12:11, the Bible says that we should test out words, as the tongue tastes food. When you taste something new, you can spit it out if it's bad, before you swallow it. In the same way, before you believe a story, or repeat it to others, you should put it to the test. Here are 2 ways you can do that. Test number 1. Consider the source of the information. Do you know where the information originally came from? Don't be fooled by appearances. An online post may look official, but behind the scenes, the author may just be repeating rumors or spreading his own opinions. And with something called deep fake technology, dishonest people can even do things like swap the faces and voices in a video to create a completely fake report. So even if a story is widely repeated, follow the Bible's advice of 1 Thessalonians 5:21 and make sure of all things.
For decades, witnesses have been taught that their spiritual safety depends on avoiding all outside information not approved by the organization. They are discouraged from reading apostate material, warned not to research their religion independently, and told to distrust anything that contradicts the Watchtower's narrative, even when those sources provide verifiable evidence. And when the governing body warns its members to consider the source, what they really mean is, if it doesn't come from us, it's not trustworthy. This is the most insidious form of misinformation, not an outright lie, but a framework designed to monopolize the truth. And once you convince people that your organization is the only trustworthy source, you don't need to defend your claims, you only need to discredit every other voice. And Jehovah's Witnesses often cite Proverbs 14 verse 15. The naive person believes every word, but the shrewd one ponders each step. Yet their own system of belief is built on the naive acceptance of whatever comes from Warwick, New York. They have replaced critical thought with blind trust. If misinformation is dangerous, as the video claims, then surely the most dangerous form is that which demands unquestioning faith in its own authority. And let's begin with the most obvious example of Jehovah's Witness misinformation: their long history of false predictions about the end of the world. From the days of founder Charles Taze Russell, the organization has been obsessed with dates and apocalyptic expectations. 1874, 1914, 1925, 1975. And yet, despite this century-long trail of misinformation, Jehovah's Witnesses continue to claim divine guidance. They dismiss these catastrophic blunders as refinements in understanding or new light. In any other field, medicine, science, or even journalism, such a record would destroy credibility. But in the world of high-control religion, cognitive dissonance is a survival mechanism. Members are taught to reinterpret past errors as proof of spiritual progress. The irony? The very process they condemn as misinformation, selectively highlighting, downplaying, and spinning facts, is exactly how the Watchtower preserves its own narrative. One of the video's key warnings is to consider the source of the information. Sound advice, no doubt, until you realize that Jehovah's Witnesses are forbidden to do exactly that when it comes to their own teachings. No witness is allowed to independently verify the accuracy of Watchtower claims. Questioning the governing body is equated with questioning God. Even well-documented historical facts, such as their cooperation with the Nazi regime in the 1930s, their secret NGO affiliation with the United Nations, or their mishandling of CSA cases, are dismissed as apostate lies. And the Watchtower's entire reasoning is circular. Jehovah's organization is the only source of truth. Any information that contradicts Jehovah's organization is false. Therefore, Jehovah's organization must be true. It's theological gaslighting, a mental feedback loop that immunizes the followers against evidence. When the video warns, "Don't be fooled by appearances," some reports may even use deepfake technology, it subtly primes witnesses to distrust anything they might later see exposing Watchtower scandals. To test the source, as they advise, is only encouraged when the source is external. Testing the Watchtower itself is off limits, a textbook example of doublethink. And the most glaring hypocrisy lies in the Watchtower's ongoing campaign against so-called apostate information. Apostates, which are former members who speak critically about the organization, like yours truly, are portrayed as hateful liars motivated by pride or satanic influence. Yet, when these same individuals present documented evidence, court records, leaked internal documents, Watchtower publications, or even video clips from their own website, the organization dismisses them wholesale. What could be a more effective way to spread misinformation than to prohibit fact-checking? If a group claims to have the truth but forbids scrutiny, that group isn't protecting truth, it's protecting power. Another subtle form of misinformation practiced by the Watchtower is context manipulation. Their publications often quote historians, scientists, and news outlets in ways that distort the original meaning, a hallmark of propaganda. Take, for example, their frequent misuse of scientific studies to justify their ban on blood transfusions. The organization cherry-picks statements about transfusion risks while ignoring the overwhelming medical consensus that transfusions save lives. By emphasizing rare complications and omitting context, they create the illusion of scientific legitimacy. The result? Countless Jehovah's Witnesses have died refusing life-saving blood transfusions, convinced they were making a moral stand. That is the ultimate cost of misinformation. Not just intellectual confusion, but human lives lost. And when the video warns that misinformation can cause people to make bad decisions or ignore important safety warnings, the hypocrisy is almost unbearable. This is the same organization that has literally encouraged members to ignore medical advice and safety warnings from the medical community. The blood doctrine, like many other teachings, is built on half-truths wrapped in moral absolutism, precisely the kind of distortion the video claims to condemn. And midway through that video, the narrator advises viewers not to get bogged down by information overload and to ask, is the story really that important to you? Now, this seemingly harmless advice carries a darker undertone than when viewed through the lens of Watchtower control. It's a subtle reinforcement of information avoidance, an excuse to disengage from any data that challenges the organization's worldview. By teaching followers to dismiss external information as trivial or not necessary, the Watchtower protects its monopoly on attention. Members are trained to see news about organizational scandals, doctrinal contradictions, or historical revisions as irrelevant. That's worldly gossip. The Watchtower's approach to misinformation, therefore, is not to teach discernment, it's to limit curiosity. The end goal isn't to help followers think critically, but to help them stop thinking altogether. And the video also warns against conspiracy theories that promote prejudice and hatred. Again, a fine principle, but one that Jehovah's Witnesses themselves violate constantly.
Compare what you hear with other sources to verify the information. Test number 2. Consider the purpose of a story. Is it really to present the facts, or to promote just one side of an issue? Some reports spin the news, emphasizing certain details and downplaying others to sway your opinion. Some reports may even be conspiracy theories, claims that certain groups have secretly plotted to cause a tragic event or crisis. The purpose is often to promote prejudice and hatred. Such theories have a way of spreading like wildfire. But they are just that, theories. And sometimes they're based on deliberate lies. So don't be fooled.
Their literature has long perpetuated a grand cosmic conspiracy that Satan controls all governments, religions, and economic systems. According to Watchtower theology, the entire world, except Jehovah's Witnesses, is part of Babylon the Great, a demonic empire destined for destruction. Now, this worldview breeds exactly the kind of prejudice and hatred they warn against. It justifies shunning non-believers, demonizing ex-members, and refusing civic engagement. It fosters an us versus them mentality and isolates witnesses from society. And when the Watchtower warns against claims that certain groups have secretly plotted to cause a tragic event, it conveniently ignores that its own eschatology is built on such claims. The organization has long asserted that Satan's agents, political rulers, religious leaders, and apostates, are conspiring to persecute Jehovah's Witnesses before Armageddon. In short, the Watchtower has been selling an all-encompassing conspiracy theory for over a century, one that makes QAnon look like amateur hour. And the final section of the video advises, if you hear something that makes you anxious or suspicious, go to someone you trust, someone with more experience, who can help you evaluate the truth behind it.
So whether you read something, hear it from another person, or it's forwarded to you by a friend, remember the words of Proverbs 14:15. The naive person believes every word, but the shrewd one ponders each step. In other words, don't just believe everything you hear without thinking it through. But that doesn't mean we can't trust anything or anyone. If you hear something that makes you anxious or suspicious, go to someone you trust, someone with more experience who can help you evaluate the truth behind it. By taking the time to evaluate information sources, considering the purpose behind the reports you hear, and not getting bogged down with news you don't really need, you'll be well informed instead of misinformed, and that will help you make good decisions and stay safe.
Now, in Watchtower speak, that someone is not a journalist, historian, or scientist. It's an elder, a pioneer, or a governing body member. This is the classic appeal to authority, a logical fallacy dressed up as humility. Instead of encouraging members to develop independent critical thinking, the organization directs them to delegate that thinking to approved figures. This effectively short-circuits intellectual autonomy. The ability to evaluate the truth becomes contingent on obedience to hierarchy. And so a video ostensibly about protecting yourself from misinformation ends up reinforcing the mechanisms that perpetuate it. Blind trust in a single source, fear of dissent, dismissal of external evidence, reliance on authority rather than reason. And the Watchtower's success lies not just in what it teaches, but in how it teaches. Every warning against misinformation is delivered with an undercurrent of fear of Satan, fear of apostasy, fear of losing Jehovah's favor. This is emotional conditioning. This emotional conditioning is itself a form of misinformation. When information is filtered through fear, objectivity becomes impossible. A terrified mind cannot think clearly. And by associating external sources with spiritual danger, the organization ensures that members' first reaction to any criticism is emotional rejection, not rational evaluation. This is why witnesses can read court documents exposing child abuse cover-ups or watch videos of governing body hypocrisy and still say it's probably fake. The Watchtower doesn't need deepfake technology. It has deep faith technology. Ironically, the very phenomenon the video warns against, the flood of online information, is what's dismantling the Watchtower's control. Because for decades, the organization operated in an information vacuum, where printed magazines and convention talks were the only available sources. But the internet has shattered that monopoly. Former witnesses now share documentation, leaked letters, and historical archives with a global audience. Every ex-member with a YouTube channel or blog represents a threat to their authority. And by labeling dissenting voices as fake news, the Watchtower borrows the very language of political demagogues, a chilling testament to how authoritarian systems mimic each other. Jehovah's Witnesses claim to love truth. It's even in their lexicon, the truth, being in the truth, returning to the truth. But their operational definition of truth is not factual accuracy. It's loyalty. Truth to them is whatever the organization currently teaches. A statement that was truth yesterday can become error tomorrow, and vice versa. And members must adjust instantly without apology or reflection. That's not the truth. That's ideological obedience. And yet, the organization's leaders have never taken accountability for the human cost of their spiritual food. Instead, they continue to issue polished videos about being careful what you believe, oblivious to the tragic irony of their words. The Jehovah's Witness video on misinformation is a masterpiece of unintentional irony. Every warning they issue, every test they recommend, every caution they provide applies directly to their own organization. They've created a comprehensive guide to identifying misinformation that perfectly describes their own methods. The tragedy is that many sincere, well-meaning people will watch this video and apply its lessons to everything except the one source they should be most skeptical of, the organization telling them what to think. They'll become more isolated, more distrustful of outside information, and more dependent on an organization that has repeatedly proven itself unreliable. True critical thinking doesn't have sacred cows. It doesn't exempt any source from scrutiny. It certainly doesn't punish people for asking honest questions. If the Jehovah's Witnesses truly want to protect their members from misinformation, they would encourage a genuine investigation, welcome questioning, and accept accountability for their mistakes. Instead, they've created a system where the only acceptable truth is whatever the organization currently teaches, at least until they change it again and call it new light. The real test of any information source isn't whether it warns you about other sources. It's whether it can withstand the same scrutiny it asks you to apply to everyone else. By that measure, the Watchtower's credibility collapses under the weight of its own advice.